I'm trying to kick off the live stream. I think the button will do it. It's working on starting it. Aha. Got it working. Okay. So, um, welcome everyone to the wasmCloud community call for Wednesday, July 10th. We're coming back from a relatively light one last week too with the US holiday, but we're gonna go ahead and kick things off. First off, though, we have at least one new community member who I've at least talked to and asked to introduce themselves. Lucas, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself since this is your first wasmCloud community call?
Yeah, sure thing. My name is Lucas Fontes. Originally from Brazil, but I spend most of my days in Canada these days. And being in the infrastructure space for quite a while, so done DigitalOcean Kubernetes, a bit of Heroku, Salesforce, and so on. And now looking to contribute into wasmCloud and pretty much everything WebAssembly. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro there, Lucas. Is there anyone else new who wants to introduce you? You're never required to introduce yourselves here, but if there's anyone else new who'd like to introduce themselves, feel free. But otherwise, we'll go ahead and kick off. So let me go ahead and share why am I forgetting what it's called? The agenda. That is the name of this thing. The agenda that we're going to be covering today. That's the one. Okay. So we have just a small agenda. As normal, we're going to have a demo today. Jonas and Lucas are going to be sharing some updates on wasmCloud Operator and some things that are going on there. And then we'll cover our classic like issue and doc of the week as well as any other announcements and items that come up. So with that, Lucas, Jonas, you guys ready to show off wasmCloud Operator things?
Yes.
Okay.
And can I steal
Yes,
the share?
I will. I'm just clicking the buttons. Are you sharing primarily, Lucas?
Yes.
Okay. I will make sure that. Okay. You're good to go.
All right. So sharing my whole screen here, and we're gonna appeal to the demo gods as usual. So what are we gonna talk about? We have the wasmCloud operator, and we're doing a few changes there in terms of making it a bit easier to get going with it. So there are many moving pieces, and we want to make sure that we're clear on each step that is happening as we set it up. So what we're looking at here is there's this pull request that is introducing a new directory called examples. And inside examples, we will have the, well, examples, where the very first one here is a kickstart, which will walk us through how to set up the operator in a brand new Kubernetes cluster and also making sure that we are checking each step on the way. And that's kind of what I would like to walk through here. Hopefully it's going to be pretty quickly and uneventful, and let's get that going. So what we have is a pretty basic Kubernetes cluster here, just one node, no pods or anything running in the default namespace so far. If we are walking through the steps here, the very first thing is to install NATS through Helm. And I'm just gonna keep doing the copy and pasting here because that's what we want most people to do. The very first thing is installing NATS. So we added the Helm repo here, which in my installation, I already have that, so not gonna do anything. Next step is to actually install the NATS cluster. And if I switch to the correct directory, that helps a lot. Once we're done with the Helm installation here, we make sure that NATS is up and running before going to the next steps. So we're gonna check the status here, stateful sets, deployments, make sure that they are in place. And we're looking for the ready here to be a matching number. So by now, NATS is up and running. The next one that we're going to do here is install WASM. Once again, we're going to do a Helm install. And also verify that it's good to go. Also ready. So by now we have NATS, WASM set up, and we can see their pods up and running in the cluster. Now we go and install the operator. And once we install the operator, we'll be able to actually install applications on top of this cluster. Once we are done doing this kubectl apply, we'll have a new namespace for the wasmCloud operator, because this is pretty much the vanilla installation for the operator. And in there, we have the operator running. Mine has been going for a while because I've done this a few times. Same situation here. We validate the deployment is up and running. And one extra step is to also validate that the API service is available. And this is because this Kubernetes controller is an API service. So we want to make sure that the Kubernetes control plane can communicate with the controller. Now we get to the fun part. We're going to create a wasmCloud host here. And this file here is what you need to create a wasmCloud host. So up until this point, we were just setting up things, making sure the infrastructure is there, making sure that the controller is up. But now we're actually starting to talk to this controller. So we're creating here one wasmCloud host, and we're giving it a lattice name of default. We want it to be of version 104, and we pass the NAT address. This is the bare minimum that you need to bring a wasmCloud host. And we're going to go ahead and apply that.
Hey, Lucas, it's me, totally not a plant. This looks like it was simpler than before. Did something change here?
Indeed, it did. So what happened here is and Jonas will probably do a better job at explaining than me. We simplified the key management inside wasmCloud. That means we removed the host signing keys that were present, where before you had to provide a secret, provide a list of issuers, generate keys with wash. That's no longer the case. So now to pretty much streamline things, you need the lattice name, which is how we're gonna assign applications to hosts. The version, which is which wasmCloud version you want these hosts to be running, and the NATS cluster. So the NATS cluster, we could even make that the default as well, but felt like given you likely will install your NATS in a dedicated namespace and so on, we wanted to make sure that this is the explicit part here of the demo. But even this part here, depending on where you put in your NATS cluster, might be left aside. And thanks for not a plant for chiming in. Cool. With that created, now we double check how that is going. So what I just ran here, which probably was a bit too quick, I'm doing a describe on the wasmCloud host object with the specific wasmCloud host resource that we just created. And this is the operator doing its thing and telling us things about this new wasmCloud host that we just set up. The interesting thing is that if you run kubectl get pod, you'll see that it brought up this host here, which is literally the one that we just created. I'll probably, yeah, I'm gonna remove this because this should be the next step, and I'll explain in a second. And I realized that because I did a describe, and I noticed that there was an application count of 1 here where it should be 0. This is because I didn't delete my application as from before as I was putting together the sample. But we see here that we have the host up. It maps to a Kubernetes pod. And now we can start interacting with, we're still interacting with kubectl, but we can install applications on this host. And the way that we do that is also back here, is by installing just a hello world with kubectl apply. This file might be familiar. It's pretty much the wasm.yaml file that you get when you set up a new, when you use one of our templates. And I'll go ahead and apply this one as well. Oops. All right, and with this in place, now the same way that we checked the status of wasmCloud host config using kubectl, we'll do the same to get the applications. And this pretty much means we can create the wasmCloud hosts and also deploy applications without having to interact with wash. So in a GitOps situation, this is likely what you will do. Now, when you're trying to debug something, when you actually need to communicate using wash, you're going to continue on to the next step here, which is communicating directly to NATs. So you bringing up NATs ports locally, forwarding them, so you can use wash locally. For that, I'm going to do that on a separate screen here, just so I can continue using the top one. So now we have NATs ports 4222, 4223 being forwarded to my local. And I can use wash commands as normal. So I can install applications, remove applications, and this way it keeps things, we can pretty much pick your point of installation here. If you want to simply install the wasmCloud hosts using Kubernetes YAMLs and then deploy using wash, you can. If you want to deploy everything using just Kubernetes YAMLs, that's also okay. At some point when you need to debug, this is what you need to do. So you port forward into NATs and then you just communicate there. And that's pretty much everything that I have here. Any questions, anything for me to cover? Just check chat.
Nothing from chat on the live stream right now. I did have a question. So I know that we talked about some changes in WADAM where you could do, you didn't have to worry about versions anymore. Has that changed things like kube control apply for a manifest and any of the patching or anything like that that's done with the applications from an operator standpoint?
From an operator standpoint, it did not change. And what you're referring to there is pretty much this pull request here that it's probably landing today. There was an upstream change in wasmCloud 1.0 that needed to be reflected here in the operator. So what this is doing is when setting up new hosts, you no longer need to generate keys. And by not doing that, it reduces a lot the boilerplate setup because you can pretty much now have this all within a Helm installation if you wanted. So setting up new hosts don't require you to run in commands and then bringing in the values from those commands into your YAMLs. It's pretty much makes things a bit easier to get going. And Liam, have a hand up.
Yes, so Kubernetes has so many moving pieces, and there are a couple different ways to run WebAssembly components on top of Kubernetes. What are some of the advantages of this way of running it, as far as an integration with other Kubernetes services or compatibility point of view compared to some of the other ways? And I'd maybe open that up to other people on the call as well, just thinking through this a little bit.
Cool. I'll give my take here and then open it up. I feel like by by using the same GitOps flow, by using Kubernetes YAML, we can hook into the ecosystem in terms of linting, validations. So you can use kubeconform, for example, to make sure that the applications being installed are using tagged images instead of just using latest everywhere. You can set up different rules also in part of the GitOps flow in terms of approvals. So if you have code owners set up in your GitOps as part of GitOps flow, you can make sure that the infra team is always tagged anytime somebody's changing that specific deployment. Rollbacks is also an interesting one because then rollbacks become also trackable in Git. So I feel like it maps very well to the ecosystem, feels very natural there. And I'll hand it over to Mahir.
Well, hello.
We can hear you.
Volumes may be a little low for anyone else, or is that just me?
Is it audible now?
Yeah.
Hi, first of all, for giving me this opportunity to ask the question on the you guys. My question basically around the wasm, how is it adopted in the industry till now? Has it gone to the big firms, or just been in still in its early stages?
So it's a good question here, and it's actually there's a reason why this is around as an operator. So really, if the question is where is WASM being adopted, and we have lots and lots of stories here. We actually have lots of people here on the call who are actually users of this and using it at their companies. And WASM is new, but also in a condition that's very stable and usable right now. And that's why we have the operator, because it allows people to use it in the most ways possible. You can run wasmCloud outside of and alongside, actually with Kubernetes at the same time. You can have wasmCloud that's running inside these Kubernetes clusters using the operator connected to a cluster you're running out on an edge somewhere, or something in a local data center. And that's what the advantages are actually of the Kubernetes operator here, is you pretty much just slot it in. The nicest thing about all this is you just need a Kubernetes cluster. You don't need anything else. You don't need any special node pools. You don't need anything else underneath the hood. You're just installing this like you would any other operator. And this ties back to kind of Liam's question as well. And I actually wrote a blog as one of my CNCF ambassador duties. I just put it in the chat. It's also in the agenda for this week. And this is a post that actually talks quite a bit about it. And so what you are seeing is that people are starting to adopt this because there are lots and lots of value propositions. So that's something we can link to a bunch of resources here later if you want to see some of those. A lot of people have talked to these points quite extensively in the past. So we can link to some of that previous art. But yeah, in answer back to that, like I said, ties back to Liam's question. This is a really great way to integrate in because it doesn't require any custom things or fiddling. You just kind of install it and then it just works. As Lucas just showed, running through the quick start, you just get that out of the box. And you're able to build some really interesting and powerful things, including connecting Kubernetes clusters to each other even. So we always jokingly say that we unintentionally solved Kubernetes federation by doing this, because you're able to connect all these clusters together. So there's lots of benefits here from doing this. And like I said, I linked to that blog post. So any other questions around the operator that people might have?
So one thing I would like to ask, the WASM, the technology, that is it independent of the platform or the OS we're talking about here,
Yeah,
or is
so
dependent?
that's actually a really good question. So for those who might be new or watching this for the first time, wasmCloud is just, we consider obviously the best way to run WASM in production. It essentially acts as Kubernetes for WebAssembly, but the things that we're using are standard completely standards compliant WebAssembly components. So anything you can run with any other runtime, like for example, wasmTime or anything else that's using components, you can run inside of wasmCloud, which also means you can run it inside of Kubernetes or outside of Kubernetes. Our big strategy here has always been we're compatible with, but not dependent on everything. So you can pretty much integrate with what you want. That's the nice thing about wasmCloud and Wasm. And we try to make that as easy as possible. Any other questions for Lucas? Okay. So with that, I did want to point out I'll actually share the screen again just so we have it. In the community agenda notes today, we already have up there to get to the right thing. There we go. We already have two different blog posts that we wanted to mention that have been released by community members here. Obviously, there's the one I just linked, which is the revolutionizing and distributed sorry, not that one. That is the wrong link. So that's a good article too. This one I want to mention as well because this is one that Ritesh, who's a community member here too, wrote about the component model. This is a really good introduction to the component model, why it works. It goes into all the different details and things, so it's really, really good. Highly recommend. We also have a new blog post that Liam and Bailey, who are obviously very familiar to everyone here, put out as part of one of our member posts about why WebAssembly is the next wave of cloud computing. So this is a really good article. This one just released yesterday. So another one that we'd highly recommend reading if you're interested in it. So those are two of the things we just wanted to point out. And then after that, we have our issue of the week and the doc of the week. We like to call these out. So the first one is we have a good first issue for the issue of the week this week. It's a simple one, but it's one that's very helpful for those who are building their own providers, especially in Rust, since a lot of people have written them in Rust right now. And if you're not familiar with using the tracing crate, like you might not know how to get started. So this is just adding some of those to the templates so that it's much easier for people to get started with adding tracing. We've demoed some of that tracing stuff here before, and it's really, really cool. So we want to make sure it's easy for people to use. And doc of the week. So we have some newly updated docs. Eric has done a bunch here. Actually, I'll even just let I know Eric's here. So Eric, do you want to talk about what we've added to this wash new documentation for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week's doc update came from an issue posted by Robin in the community, noting that we didn't have complete documentation for the arguments you can use with the washnew CLI command to create a new component or provider from a template. So now with our update to this page, we show users how to create a new component or provider from templates on GitHub using the git argument, along with optional arguments for branch and subfolder. And we also show users how to specify a template from a local file path. Finally, we explain how including a project generate.toml file in the project directory can turn it into a template and what a standard one of those files actually looks like. So thanks to Robin for putting in that issue, and hopefully that'll be useful for both new and existing users.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so we are continuing to get lots of good doc updates here. So go ahead and check these out and let us know if you have any other feedback or feel free to open PRs. So with that, that was all we had for the agenda today. Pretty light, all things considered. We have some exciting things that'll be coming out after we start working on the roadmap we planned last week. Just one more way in terms of announcements, we have the KubeCon co-located CFPs all closing this Sunday. That includes WasmCon. We extended it out. It had its own separate one because it was before there's a whole bunch of things there, but now it's the same date. So the WasmCon CFP will also close on Sunday. So if you have anything that you are working on, please let us know, especially if it involves wasmCloud. As a community members, we're really happy to see those, and we're completely willing to help out as well. So if you have any needs for feedback, let us know in the wasmCloud Slack, and we can help it there. So, and then someone up in the Aditya in the chat. Man, I'm having a hard time talking today. Brought up a white paper that Liam had shared. I believe it's the one that Jonas shared out there. So that's a um, if I'm wrong, let me know. But that's another interesting resource as well. So thanks for sharing that. Any other announcements, updates, things people want to talk about today? Okay, awesome. Well, I left that in awkward silence enough for anyone who wanted to talk to be able to talk if they wanted to. Um,
Wait, hold on. Did we talk about the Go release? That was
did we
after
talk
last
about
week's
that? Was that after last? Oh man, see,
that
time
was after
flies. We should
that
probably
was
mention
after the
that.
community meeting.
That
We should pull
was.
up that's like the
Hold
biggest
on.
blog post that we've
Let me
had.
pull that up. That's a good point.
How
Oh
did
no,
that one not?
it released before, but I'm not sure if we talked about it. In case we didn't, we will mention it one more time. Um, it
Come on,
is
Albrechts.
right here. So let me link this in the chat as well for those who want to see it. But this is on the wasmCloud blog. Um, basically, the WASI Preview 2 support has landed entirely like as a first class citizen in the TinyGo toolchain. So that means you can just compile straight to TinyGo from in TinyGo to WASI P2, and that means you can just build components now. So once it's in TinyGo, that's really the step into getting it into, like we like to call it Big Go when we're talking about the two together. And so once it's in Big Go, Go will also be able to build components. So there is a bunch of people who we call out here who did some great work getting this all together. It was a huge cross-company, cross-community collaboration effort to get it working. But essentially, you have like, hey, this looks just like Go. I could do Go run on this. Well, yep. There's no WASI stuff. This is what the future of a lot of languages look like, and Go's getting it, one of the first ones to get it in there, along with things like C#'s working on it as well. But instead of having, if you've seen some of the like raw like WASI HTTP stuff, there's all this like reading from streams and all this stuff that has to happen, and you don't have to do that inside of Go. You can, like, that's the whole point of this sentence right here. You're not seeing any calls to WASI interface. It's just using WASI interfaces under the hood, and so you can just use Go like normal, and you're still able to use custom interfaces and pull in those and consume them just like you would any other WIT inside of here as well. And so there's examples of how to do this with like GoJQ and to run it. It's pretty awesome. So this is the pattern that we're going to see in a lot of languages where the core foundations that are in Preview 2 are just supported by default in the language chains, language tool chains. So this is a really, really exciting piece of news, especially because Go is just one of those languages that is like the lingua franca of cloud native. And so having this around is really powerful and is going to unlock a lot of stuff. And combine this with the fact that we've really started to polish up the provider SDK for Go, you're also able to write providers in Go without too much hassle. So we continue to see this evolve, and this is just another exciting step towards making just WASM in general just really easy to use. So that's kind of the update here. So go check out the post and try it out. Let us know if you find anything or build anything cool with it.
Oh, sorry. Did Go beat Rust? Is it still stage 3 in Rust? WASI P2?
It's so the problem with Rust is that, like, for example, there's not a built-in HTTP client or server, so you can't really integrate with that. You have to integrate in with the libraries. We're working on stuff. So Brooks has actually been working with the maintainer of request to add in
Right.
support for like
Oh no,
WASI HTTP there.
I was just talking about like the LLVM triple.
Yeah, it
It's a
is.
valid target.
It's
Still stage 3?
I'd have to Google it, but it's on the Rust blog. There's a blog post that
Yeah. No, I
that
think
was
it is.
written,
It's
shows
supposed
where
to
it's at.
be I don't know. Maybe it is. I'll check it out. But I'd be
But yeah,
interested if
I think it's
Go
in
beat
I think
Rust.
it's in Nightly.
Yeah.
But right now it's in TinyGo. It should be into Big Go here relatively soon. So we're all excited to see this. Like I said, I've seen this working in C#. It's not. I think it's out in the dev branch, for WASI HTTP right now. And then what other languages was? I think there was another one, but anyway, all of that's now just kind of part of the stampings. It might have been some of the Kotlin stuff, but I'd have to go check. So, any more questions, concerns, thoughts on the world, ideas before we end the stream? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and close it for today. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll look forward to seeing you next wasmCloud Wednesday. And let us know if you have any other demos or things you